Hey everyone, back tuning into today's video. We're going to do the Winter 13-14 Roundup video today. We're going to have a look at a few things and see how they're developing as we run up to winter. We're getting well on into the autumn now, of course. We're almost into the middle of October, so things are beginning to get very critical in terms of how this is all developing. It's all building up and building up and building up, and eventually we're going to get to the actual forecast for the winter of 2013-2014, which will be released at gasweathervids.com on 10th of the 3rd. So it's getting very close now. It's not very close, but it's getting a lot closer. And as I say, we're going to have a look at how things are developing over the few weeks as we run up to that winter. Now, before I get on with the video, just want to talk about the advertising. There are high quality video ads on all my pages at Gaz Weathervids. I'm very proud of these video ads. Please play the video ads. I know you do play them. Keep playing them. Do play them. See what they're about. The ads will be changing all the time. There'll be new video ads appearing all the time, so you're not going to be stuck with the same one over and over again. You should be seeing new ads appearing all the time, so keep playing the ads, see what they're about, and when you do it, you support GazWeathervids.com, so the advertiser gets to tell you what they want to tell you, and at the same time Gaz Weathervids is being supported also, and that allows me then to have the website, the advertising page website, so it's a means to an end for me to sit here and talk to you via the website. It all goes around, everything is circular in life, as they say, so it all comes full circle, and that allows me to talk to you by the advertiser also talking to you, so it's all a wonderful thing that you're doing, and thanks so much for doing it. So let's get on with the video, and we're going to start off with sea surface temperature anomalies. The first area I want to draw your attention to for today's video is up in the north east of the Pacific Ocean, and it's this area just here. You'll remember when we started doing these videos, this area was warm. And I say it's very unusual to see that part of the Pacific Ocean off the coast of Alaska and Canada and Northwest America. I say it's very unusual to see that warm. It's probably, I predicted it probably would turn cold. Indeed, it has turned a lot colder, and things are reverting to normal now up there. So it looks like we're going to have the famous horseshoe shape of cold as we go through in towards the winter. That means that the PDO is probably going to be cold through this winter, which is this sort of area here. It is the period of the cold PDO, of course. Now you can get warm periods within the cold PDO, but generally when you're in these PDO periods, the cold or the warm period will tend to dominate. So we are in the cold PDO. You would expect to have a cold PDO winter, of course, and say we may get a warm PDO winter, but you wouldn't certainly expect it. Now for the ENSO region, quite interesting. We're still at neutral ENSO conditions, and that's indicated by that cool water there going along the dateline of the equatorial Pacific. But notice this area just here is beginning to warm a little bit around there, and of course I have said that what we're likely to see through this winter is that we're likely to shift from neutral cold PDO to neutral cold ENSO, I should say, to neutral warm ENSO. So we're probably not going to get an El Nino, but we're probably going to shift from the La Nina side, which is the cold water just here. We're probably going to shift from the La Nina side of neutral towards the El Nino side of neutral. We could well be seeing the first signs of that with that warming beginning to occur just there, but it shouldn't make much difference overall, which just means that the ENSO neutral is shifting more towards the warmer side. In terms of the Atlantic, well, things are warming in the North Atlantic around here. Yeah, we definitely getting some warming going on. We haven't got a tripod, but we have got a very warm Atlantic at the moment. Look how warm it is through the tropical Atlantic. Very surprising this hurricane season, how quiet the hurricane season is, given how warm the Atlantic Ocean is. I won't be at all surprised if there's more left to this hurricane season. It's not going to be a big hurricane season, it can't be now, but given how warm the Atlantic Ocean is, I've got a feeling we're going to see some action before the end of November, which will officially be the end of the hurricane season. But generally, the idea is that the Atlantic is warming just at the moment. We haven't got a tripod. We've got quite a warm Atlantic. We need to see whether we start getting any cooler. Sorry, that's a bit wrong. We need to see whether we start getting any cooler waters beginning to occur around here. If we'd had a big hurricane season, it's possible that this area could have got churned up a bit, actually, and we might have started getting more towards a tripod. We haven't had it yet, but if we do get some hurricanes beginning to kick off, given how warm the Atlantic is, we have got to watch that area to see whether the cold band could begin to appear, and if it does, we will be close then to starting to get a tripod, I think. The CFS version 2 El Nino forecast is quite interesting. It is lifting things, talking of ENSO, it is lifting things up into weak El Nino now. It was, before, it was agreeing with all the other models, really, that were shifting from the La Nina side of the ENSO neutral towards the El Nino side of ENSO neutral. But it's sort of increasing this idea more, and this area here, this line here I should say, the 0.5 line, is where we've got to go over to have an El Nino. You've got to be over 0.5 degrees above or below average to have El Nino or La Nina designated. It's a close run thing, but actually, if I carry on with the line just there, go through there, actually you'll see that just about the CFS version 2 model is just lifting things in towards into an El Nino, a very weak El Nino, but it is just lifting things above that 0.5 Celsius line, which is critical to go from neutral conditions to very weak El Nino. So it's possible we'll have an El Nino this winter. I wouldn't rate it any more than around 20-30%, but what's interesting with that is that if you get a weak El Nino with a cold PDO, especially if the PDO was to go really cold, that would probably favour a very cold winter in the United States, and quite how that would feed into things in the Atlantic, difficult to say. It would depend on the Atlantic sea surface temperature and on the exact track of the jet stream. Sometimes very, very cold winters in the east of the states can sort of increase zonality across the North Atlantic. Those big stormy, snowy lows that you hear about in the east of the states, they can come into the Atlantic and really pep up the jet stream. So sometimes that can be bad news for us if you want a cold winter. But you can get certain scenarios where both sides of the Atlantic are cold. It happened in the winter of 62-63. It happened in 78-79. Very often the very coldest of British winters actually coincide with cold winters in the state. But it'll be interesting to see how that El Nino, or whether that El Nino does develop. Certainly I think we are moving more towards the ENSO, the warm ENSO side of neutral. Whether we get to an El Nino, difficult to say. Now, solar activity next, and things are beginning to develop a little bit with the sun. It's been very quiet on the sun for a very long time, but we have actually got some sunspots, and the official designation of the sun on our side of the solar disk today is that we've got moderate solar activity. Haven't had that very often really during this solar cycle, never mind strong and very strong solar activity. But today, when I'm doing the video, yeah, we've got moderate solar activity, and we have got a few sunspots blowing up there, a few round here, a few over there as well. We're generally in the southern hemisphere of the solar disk. Of course, that's what you expect at this point in the cycle, to have more in the southern hemisphere as the magnetic field of the sun begins to flip. We've already, I believe, we've already flipped the northern hemisphere up here. We will be flipping the magnetic field of the southern hemisphere as well at some point very, very soon. This may be leading up to that, to be honest. It could be. But anyway, we've got moderate solar activity, sunspot activity today. We'll see how that develops. If it's the start of a bit of a ramp up going in towards the latter stages of the autumn into the winter, of course, it should be ramping up because it's at solar maximum. So if it's start of a ramp up, that probably favours more of a westerly zonal type or winter, but it's early days on that, and we're only at moderate. Could well be that the activity falls back. Now, moving through to the hurricane activity, the hurricane season. Look at this. It's been such a quiet season. We've only had 12 depressions in total in the tropical Atlantic, and 11 of those 12 have been storms. Just 2 have been hurricanes. Can you believe it? And in terms of Category 3 hurricanes, we haven't had 1 Category 3 or worse. Of course, it goes up to Category 5. We haven't had 1 Category 3, 4 or 5 hurricane. Now, I did say that with the Atlantic looking so warm, I wouldn't be surprised if things did still kick off. And we got some hurricanes between now and the end of the season on the 30th of November. It could happen, but to be honest, I'm not sure about it because it's been so quiet. I can't explain why it's been so quiet. I'm not an expert on hurricane activity, but with such a warm Atlantic, really unusual season this one to have it so quiet. But we're going to see whether any more do develop over the next few weeks. Now, we're going to have a look at Siberian snow cover and sea ice extent next. And this was the situation when I did my last video. It wasn't a roundup video, but when I did the last video on, let's see what date it was, Friday the 4th of October, this was the situation. And we had got the snow coming through there very well. I said that we're probably leading the season, actually. We're probably in a leading season, just probably on a par with 2002, but certainly above all other seasons in terms of the snow cover across Siberia. Let's see where we are today. You got a sneak peek of it, actually, when I went over onto this page, and there it is. Well, yeah, we've got more gains happened in the last week, or we've had more gains in the last week. That situation a week ago. We have lost some from this area just here, but we've gained more from this area over here. So now we're pretty much covered through eastern parts of Siberia as well. We're stretching it into central areas. We're going to start pushing it backwards now and see how quick we push it back into western parts of Russia, and of course going up in towards Scandinavia. Always important with this, see how quick things start piling up over Scandinavia. But we're doing very, very well. It's only really 2002 this year that we're probably now lagging behind. I think we are a little bit behind 2002, that situation in 02. And this is the situation this year. I think we are lagging a bit behind 2002 now, but otherwise we're above all other years, doing very, very well. And we're also doing very well for snow, for sea ice as well. Look how quick this is filling in. Go back to last week. This yellow area is where the sea ice is. The blue areas is where the sea ice is melting. Go forward again to the latest image, and clearly there's been very big gains in sea ice over the last week. I think we've actually gone above 2006 now, which was the last reasonable sort of melt season. I think we're above 2006 now, so we're doing very, very well with the sea ice, and that's really good news. However the winter pans out, it's really good news to be seeing the sea ice doing so well. Let's hope we can maintain this into next year's melt season. That's going to be the critical one. See whether this much better year is sustained through next year, and maybe if we can improve on it. But very good news anyway for the sea ice. Last thing I want to look at for this video is the QBO, the quasi-biennial oscillation. Very difficult to really talk about the QBO, but what you need to know is that when the QBO is in its westerly phase, it favours zonal westerlies. Its strength means the zonal westerlies are strengthening through the northern hemisphere. When the QBO is in its easterly phase, it means the zonal westerlies are weaker, and these phases generally last over around 27 months from westerly to easterly and back to westerly again. So talking about over 2 years, really, just over 2 years throughout the whole of the cycle. Now, I'm not a fan of this. A lot of people do use the QBO for their forecast. Personally, I'm not a fan of sort of teleconnections forecasting, particularly using the QBO, and I'll explain why right now. We're in the westerly phase of the QBO right now, which should, certainly if the theory is correct, it should be favouring stronger westerlies for the winter. And that, of course, strong westerlies means a milder winter for the British Isles. But you always get exceptions with this, and one exception was this year up here, where you've got the grey area, I should just say, is where we've got the westerly QBO. So that's where we've got this strength. That's where we're strengthening the zonal westerlies. Where we've got the white areas, that's where we've got the easterly QBO, and that means that the zonal westerlies are weak. You should, in theory, be getting more blocking through those winters. But what's interesting with this is that there are always exceptions to this. So the winter of 2008-2009, for instance, which is just here and going through here, that was a westerly QBO winter, but we still had plenty of blocking, there was plenty of cold weather, albeit there was a lot of Atlantic activity as well, and it wasn't continuously cold, but certainly had a lot of, that sort of helped us really get a lot of snow events through the winter of 2008 and 2009. Also the winter of 2010-2011 was a westerly QBO winter. That is this area just here. And we know that we got a ferociously cold December in 2010, despite the fact we was in the westerly phase of the QBO. Now, of course, that winter did turn milder later on, but it was a relief, I think, by the time we got through to January, that we were seeing that severe cold that we had in the December of 2010 moderating somewhat. Let's see if I can find another winter that was in the westerly phase of the QBO. And what about this one, 1990-1991, which is just here? That was a westerly QBO winter, most certainly. And yeah, you've guessed it, it was a cold winter as well. And perhaps going back a little bit further, let's go up, have a look at 78-79. That one's a little bit more controversial. I think the ECQBO was starting through that winter. It's just here, winter 78-79. I think the ECQBO was starting, but it was probably more or less for most of it anyway in the westerly QBO. I think you have to get to 50 HPA. Which is just there, that line going through. The westerlies and easterly QBOs have to get to that line there to be in that particular phase. So I think for most of 78-79 we was actually in the westerly QBO, although the ECQBO was starting. Certainly for 77-78 we was in the westerly QBO, which is just going through here. And that winter also had some pretty cold weather, especially in February of 1978. And of course there's exceptions to this as well in terms of the easterly QBO, because a lot of people think that when you're in an easterly QBO that means you're going to have a cold winter. Now it can certainly mean that in some instances, but not all instances. The winter of 2011-2012, which was just here, was an ECQBO winter, and that had quite a lot of mild weather. You'll remember it, I'm quite sure. Let's have a look at another easterly QBO winter that had a lot of mild weather. Well, what about this one? 1991-1992. That was an easterly QBO winter. 98 going through to 99. That was an ECQBO winter. Should have been favouring a mild, colder than average winter with sort of westerlies weaker. And indeed, it was a mild winter. Sorry, it was a mild winter. That one, and going further back to say 74-75. That's quite obviously an easterly QBO winter. Just there. Again, should have been favouring weaker westerly winds, should have been favouring less zonality. It didn't. It was a very zonal winter, very, very mild winter of 74-75. Now, that's not to say some ECQBO winters can't be cold, because they certainly can, but 62-63 was an easterly QBO winter, and we know that was a ferociously cold winter, of course. And let's have a look for another one that was very cold. Well, probably 86-87 was an ECQBO winter. I think just about that was a cold winter as well. Although 85-86 was a much colder winter than 86-87, that was a westerly QBO winter. Should have been favouring. It should have been favouring westerlies that winter. In fact, we got a substantially and severely cold February in 1986. So you get the idea that I'm trying to make with this. But QBO certainly has its place in forecasting. And you hear a lot about it. A lot of forecasters do take it very, very seriously and kind of rely on it. I'm not a fan of it personally, because as I've explained, there are so many years that buck the trend with this. And despite the fact we're in that westerly QBO or an easy QBO, it most certainly doesn't guarantee a mild winter when you're westerly, and it certainly doesn't guarantee a cold winter when you're easterly. So that's the QBO. I've said my piece on that. It'll probably be quite controversial because a lot of people do sort of take the QBO very, very seriously. So I hope it'll spark a little bit of a debate, maybe. That's it for now, anyway. All very interesting in terms of the winter roundup today. I've gone on for a long, long time talking about the QBO. Hope I haven't been too boring. Next week we may have all the seasonal models in. I'm not sure if we will or not. It could be just a little bit too early, so I'm not sure what we'll be doing next week. Hopefully, fingers crossed, if we all keep our fingers crossed, we'll be able to do the seasonal model roundup. If not, that'll be the week after, and I'll be left with an empty week next week, trying to come up with something to talk about. That's it for now. Thanks for watching.